Millionaire hires a fake date for his ex's engagement party, but she steals the show. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The golden envelope sat on his glass desk, heavy with words that cut deeper than any business rival ever could. You are cordially invited to the engagement party of Charlotte and Daniel. The woman he once loved, the one who had promised him forever, was walking down an aisle that no longer included him. Ethan Cole, 33 years old, CEO of a luxury real estate empire, stared at the invitation with a jaw so tight it ached. In the boardroom, he could silence billionaires with a single glance. But this piece of ivory paper with gold trim-mocked him in a way no hostile takeover ever had. The problem was not only Charlotte. It was the room he knew he would walk into. A ballroom filled with silk gowns and champagne flutes. Every camera flashing, every whisper sharp. They would look at him, the ex, the man she left behind, and wonder if he had been replaced not just in love but in stature. For someone like Ethan, image was not decoration. Image was survival. He leaned back in his leather chair, tapping the corner of the invitation against the desk. Showing up alone was not an option. The press would feast on it, his rivals would smirk, and Charlotte would bask in the glory of having won. No, he needed a weapon sharper than arrogance. He needed a companion who could steal the spotlight. That night, in a downtown cafe, far from glass towers and designer suits, fate brushed against him in the most unpolished form. She was there behind the counter, hair tied back, apron dusted with flour, balancing plates while humming under her breath. Her name was Lily. She was no heiress, no trust fund, just a woman working double shifts to pay her younger brother's medical bills. But when she caught a falling tray with reflexes as quick as lightning, then laughed at herself with a sparkle that lit the entire room, Ethan felt something stir. Not attraction, not yet. It was recognition. The kind of fire that no ballroom chandelier could outshine. He approached the counter, watching her wipe her hands nervously on her apron. "You are quick on your feet," he said in that measured voice that usually made assistants scramble. Lily smiled cautiously. "Years of practice. Coffee, sir?" What came next surprised even him. Ethan, the man who signed contracts worth millions without blinking, heard himself say, "I have a proposition. One evening, I need you to pretend to be my date at an event." She blinked, uncertain if this was a joke. Pretend? Like, act? Yes, there will be compensation. Enough to cover more than a few coffee shifts. Her instinct was to laugh and walk away. But then she thought of the hospital bills stacked on her kitchen table. The late fees circled in red. This stranger in a tailored suit was offering a way out, even if it sounded ridiculous. Lily folded her arms, trying to stand taller than her worn sneakers allowed. "Why me? You could have any model, any actress. Why ask a waitress you do not even know?" Ethan's eyes held hers. For a moment, the weight of his empire slipped away, leaving only a man cornered by pride and desperation. "Because," he said quietly, "you are real. And that is exactly what I need." The cafe around them buzzed with orders and clinking cups, but for those few seconds, it felt like the city had hushed. Lily did not yet realize that saying yes to this contract would throw her into a world of glittering chandeliers, vicious whispers, and staged affection that would start to feel dangerously genuine. And Ethan did not yet know that the woman he picked to silence gossip would soon become the only voice he could not ignore. That was how the game began. Not with love, not with trust, but with a deal inked in desperation and disguised as convenience. The cafe's clock ticked past midnight, its crowd thinning until only the hum of the espresso machine filled the silence. Lily wiped down the counter, stealing uncertain glances at the man still seated at the corner table. He had not left, and she knew why. Ethan Cole was not a man who wasted time. When he asked her to pretend to be his date, he meant it as seriously as any contract he had ever signed. Tonight was not about idle talk. Tonight was negotiation. He slid a sleek black folder across the counter. Inside, Crisp documents spelled out the terms of an arrangement that seemed unreal to her. A binding contract, complete with clauses and signatures. "You will accompany me to the engagement party," Ethan said, his tone calm but unyielding. "You will act as though we are in a committed relationship. There will be more events afterward. Public appearances, charity galas, dinners. 1 month in total. At the end, you walk away with full payment. Enough to solve the bills you have been struggling with." Lily's hands tightened around the folder. He had noticed. She hated that he had seen through her so easily. Hated even more that he was right. Her brother's medical debt had been eating her alive, and here was a lifeline written in legal ink. She lifted her eyes. "And what exactly do you expect from me? You want me to play a role, but how far does it go?" Ethan leaned forward, his gaze steady. "You will dress appropriately. You will speak with grace. I will teach you what you need to know. Nothing more, nothing less. This is performance, Lily. A flawless performance. Because in my world, perception is power, and we cannot afford mistakes." The word performance made her chest tighten. She had served coffee, washed dishes, struggled to keep her family afloat. Now he was asking her to step into a world of crystal glasses and sharp whispers, a world designed to crush anyone who did not belong. Still, she flipped through the contract. The number written there made her throat go dry. It was more than she could make in 2 years behind this counter. Ethan watched her hesitate. For a moment, his voice softened. "I am not asking you to sell yourself. I am asking you to play a part. Think of it as a stage. You can leave at any time if you choose. But I think you will not, because you need this as much as I do." She met his eyes. For the first time, she glimpsed the man beneath the tailored suit, the flicker of desperation he tried so hard to hide. This was not just about pride. It was about survival, the kind she understood too well. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the pen. "Fine. 1 month. But I have rules too. No lies about who I am when we are alone. And when this is over, it is truly over." A corner of his mouth curved, almost like a smile. "Agreed." The pen scratched across the page, sealing their fates together. When Lily handed the contract back, Ethan stood, his presence towering over the small cafe. "We start tomorrow. You will need training, wardrobe, etiquette, conversation. You will learn quickly, because I do not tolerate failure." Her instinct was to snap back, but the weight of her brother's hospital bills silenced her. Instead, she nodded, though her pulse raced. As he left, the bell above the door chimed softly, leaving Lily alone with the echo of what she had just done. A waitress by morning, a millionaire's fabricated lover by night. And in 30 days, either she would walk away with freedom, or she would lose herself in the lie. The next morning, Lily stood in front of a mirror that did not belong to her world. Gone were the fluorescent lights of the cafe. Instead, golden sunlight poured through the windows of Ethan's penthouse, reflecting against a wall of glass that overlooked the city skyline. She tugged at the neckline of the silk dress Ethan's assistant had chosen for her, feeling as though she was wrapped in someone else's skin. Ethan appeared behind her reflection, dressed immaculately as always, his hands tucked into his pockets. "Posture," he said simply. "Straighten your back, shoulders down. Confidence is not just about what you say. It is about how you enter a room." Lily inhaled sharply, forcing herself upright. The dress pinched, the heels wobbled, but she held his gaze in the mirror. "And what if they see through me?" "They will not," Ethan replied without hesitation. "Not if you follow my lead. Speak less, observe more. A single well-timed smile can silence an entire table. You are not here to impress them with pedigree. You are here to make them wonder who you are." He guided her through the apartment like it was a stage. She practiced sipping champagne without leaving lipstick stains. She learned to walk across marble floors without tripping over heels. Ethan corrected every gesture with cool precision, yet there was no cruelty in his tone, only expectation. "Again," he said, handing her a glass. "Grip the stem, not the bowl. Your hand warms the drink otherwise. Small detail, but details build perception." Hours blurred together. Forks and knives became weapons of etiquette. Names of socialites rolled off his tongue for her to memorize. He drilled her until her head ached, until laughter burst from her lips at the absurdity of it all. "You know this is insane, right?" she muttered, wobbling in heels after her 10th attempt at the perfect entrance. Ethan arched a brow. "What is insane is letting people underestimate you. What is insane is surrendering to a room that feeds on weakness. I am preparing you to win, Lily. Nothing less." She stared at him, caught off guard by the fire in his words. This was not just training for her. This was his armor, sharpened and passed down. And for the first time, she wondered what battles he had fought alone in those glittering ballrooms. When she finally collapsed onto a velvet chair, breathless and aching, Ethan handed her a glass of water instead of champagne. "You are stubborn," he said, almost amused. "Thank you, I guess," she replied, rolling her eyes. It was not a compliment, but the flicker of a smile betrayed him. That night, after the assistant left with discarded dresses and shoes, Ethan lingered by the window, the city burning in neon below. Lily gathered her things, ready to retreat, when his voice stopped her. "Tomorrow, we test you in public," he said. "A small dinner, nothing grand, but eyes will be watching. If you stumble, they will smell blood." Her stomach tightened. She wanted to argue, to remind him she was just a waitress, not a trained actress. But then she remembered the ink on that contract, and her brother's fragile face under hospital lights. She could not afford to fail. "I will not stumble," she said firmly, even as her knees trembled inside the borrowed heels. Ethan turned to her, and for a moment, his expression softened. "Good, because from this moment on, you are no longer Lily the waitress. You are Lily Hart, the woman who will walk beside me." The words lingered in the air long after she left the penthouse. And as she rode the elevator down to the street, clutching the hem of the silk dress still clinging to her frame, she wondered if Ethan truly believed in her, or if he was just convincing himself of the same lie. Either way, the stage was set. Tomorrow, the performance would begin. The night of the engagement party arrived like a storm Lily could not outrun. The hotel ballroom shimmered with golden chandeliers, the air thick with perfume and the clink of crystal. A red carpet stretched across marble floors, leading into a world Lily had only seen in magazines stacked in the cafe's break room. She stood outside the entrance, her arm looped through Ethan's. His tuxedo was cut sharp, his expression unreadable. Lily wore a gown of midnight blue silk, the fabric hugging her figure like it had been spun for her alone. Every inch of her had been rehearsed: her walk, her smile, the way her fingers would rest lightly on Ethan's sleeve. Yet her pulse raced like a drumbeat, threatening to drown it all out. "You remember what I told you," Ethan murmured as they paused at the doorway. "No hesitation. Breathe. Hold your ground." She nodded, her throat dry. Then the double doors opened, and the performance began. Cameras flashed as they entered. Heads turned. Murmurs swept through the crowd like sparks across dry leaves. Ethan Cole, the man left behind, was not alone. He had brought someone no one recognized. And she was stunning. Lily felt the weight of 100 eyes. But instead of shrinking, she remembered Ethan's words. Shoulders back, chin up, one smile, timed just right. When she tilted her lips upward, the whispers shifted. Intrigue replaced pity. Curiosity overpowered judgment. Charlotte, radiant in her white satin gown, froze mid-conversation when she spotted them. The smile on her face faltered, ever so slightly. Daniel, her groom-to-be, placed a hand on her arm. But the damage was done. The room had already seen it, the flicker of jealousy in the bride's eyes. Ethan's hand pressed lightly against Lily's back, guiding her forward as though they owned the room. He introduced her to acquaintances, to rivals, to people who measured worth in pedigrees and last names. And Lily, drawing on every hour of training, held her own. At the champagne tower, an older woman eyed her curiously. "And where did you say you studied, dear?" Lily's heart stuttered, but Ethan cut in smoothly. "She is far too modest. Her work speaks louder than credentials." His tone was final, daring anyone to press further. Later, as the orchestra swelled, Ethan pulled her onto the dance floor. The touch of his hand on her waist sent a shiver through her, though she forced herself to focus on the steps he had drilled into her. The crowd watched, captivated, and for a fleeting moment, it felt real the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, the way her laughter escaped without rehearsal. From the corner, Charlotte watched with clenched fists, her perfect smile stretched thin. The woman she had expected Ethan to arrive with was supposed to be forgettable, a placeholder. Instead, Lily had stolen the glow meant for the bride. After the dance, as they retreated to a quieter corner, Ethan leaned close. His voice was low, meant only for her. "You exceeded expectations." Lily exhaled a laugh, shaky but proud. "I did not trip, so I suppose that is a win." But Ethan did not smile. His gaze lingered, as if he were reassessing her entirely. She was no longer just a waitress playing dress-up. She had shifted the narrative of the night, rewriting the story in front of everyone. As the evening wore on, Lily began to notice it too. Guests sought her out, not just Ethan. They asked questions, they offered compliments, they whispered behind her back with a curiosity that bordered on envy. She was no longer invisible. By the time the party ended, Charlotte's engagement celebration had transformed into something else entirely. The headlines would not read about her gown or her ring. They would ask one question: who was the mysterious woman at Ethan Cole's side? And as the chauffeur opened the car door, Ethan placed a hand on Lily's arm. "Tonight was only the beginning," he said quietly. She slid into the car, her heart pounding. For the first time, she wondered if she had signed up for more than she could control. Because in that ballroom, under the glow of chandeliers, the line between performance and reality had already begun to blur. The following week unfolded like a whirlwind Lily had not been prepared for. After the success of the engagement party, Ethan insisted on taking her to more events, charity galas, business dinners, gallery openings. Each night was another stage, another performance, and each time she walked beside him, the whispers grew louder. At first, Lily believed she was managing well. The gowns fit better, the heels hurt less, and her smile no longer trembled under the scrutiny of strangers. But beneath the shimmer of chandeliers and the clinking of glasses, there was a growing danger. People were beginning to notice. At a dinner hosted by one of Ethan's business partners, a man leaned across the table with a sharp smile. "You have quite the mysterious companion, Ethan. I do not recall seeing her at any of the old family's events. Tell us, Lily, what does your family do?" Her fork froze midair. The rehearsed answers vanished from her mind. She opened her mouth, but Ethan spoke first, his tone smooth as glass. "Her family values privacy, and I respect that." The conversation shifted, but Lily felt the sting of curious eyes. Later that night, in the car, she whispered, "They are starting to suspect. They know I do not belong." Ethan's gaze remained fixed on the city lights outside the window. "Let them suspect. Speculation is not proof. What matters is how you carry yourself. You are not defined by what they think you lack." His words steadied her, but they did not erase the unease. Every event became a test, and every glance felt like a blade searching for a crack in her disguise. The worst came at a charity gala when Charlotte herself approached. Draped in jewels, her smile was polished to perfection, but her eyes glittered with malice. "Lily, is it? Such an unusual name for our circles. Where did you say you studied?" Lily's throat tightened. She remembered Ethan's rule: speak less, observe more. But Charlotte's tone demanded an answer. Before she could stumble, Ethan slid an arm protectively around her waist. She studied in the lessons life gave her, lessons far more valuable than any textbook. Charlotte's smile faltered, but she did not retreat. "How poetic. I just hope she can keep up with this world, Ethan. It has a way of breaking those who do not belong." The words cut sharper than any insult. Lily forced a serene smile, but inside her stomach churned. Charlotte knew. Maybe not the details, but she sensed the truth. When they returned to the penthouse that night, Lily finally confronted Ethan. "This is not working. I cannot keep pretending. They are going to find out." Ethan poured himself a drink, his movements measured. "And if they do, what then? They will whisper, they will sneer, and then they will move on to their next scandal. People like Charlotte feed on fear. The only way to win is to starve them of it." She stared at him, frustrated. "Easy for you to say. You were born into this world. You know its language. I am just me." For the first time, Ethan's voice softened. "And that is why they cannot touch you. Because you are not playing by their rules. You are rewriting them, Lily. That is why I chose you." Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the steel in his words. But as she lay awake that night in the guest room, she could not shake Charlotte's threat. The walls of this fabricated life were closing in, and it was only a matter of time before someone tore them down. And though Ethan would not admit it, she saw the way his jaw tensed whenever reporters circled too close, or when questions grew too sharp. He was beginning to protect her in ways the contract never required. The danger was not just that they would be exposed. The danger was that somewhere between the lies and the truth, her heart was no longer pretending. Rain pattered against the penthouse windows, a soft rhythm that filled the silence between them. Lily stood barefoot in the kitchen, wrapped in one of Ethan's oversized shirts he had tossed her way after the gala. The night had been another battlefield, and her nerves still hummed from Charlotte's barbed words. Ethan entered quietly, his tie loosened, his eyes weary. He set a glass of whiskey on the counter, but did not drink it. Instead, he leaned against the marble island, watching her with an expression she could not read. "You held your ground tonight," he said at last. "Even when she tried to break you." Lily let out a hollow laugh. "If by holding my ground you mean smiling until my jaw ached, then yes, I suppose I did well." "You did more than well," he said firmly. "Charlotte wanted to rattle you. She failed." The words should have comforted her, but they only deepened the ache in her chest. "How long do we have to keep doing this? Pretending? Lying?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Until it no longer matters what they think." "And when will that be?" she pressed, her voice trembling. "Because it feels like I am losing myself in this performance." He stepped closer, his presence filling the space between them. "You are not losing yourself, Lily. You are becoming stronger. You are proving to them and to yourself that you belong anywhere you choose to stand." Her eyes searched his, desperate for truth. For a moment, she forgot the contract, the lies, the stakes. All she saw was the man who had defended her, again and again, in rooms designed to tear her apart. Without thinking, she whispered, "Why do you care so much?" Ethan froze. The mask of control wavered, and something raw flickered in his eyes. He should have answered with distance, with cold logic. But instead, his hand lifted, brushing a strand of damp hair from her cheek. "I do not know," he admitted quietly. The room seemed to shrink, the rain louder, their breaths shallow. Lily's heart pounded as his touch lingered. The line between performance and reality dissolved, leaving only the heat of proximity and the pull of something neither of them had planned. And then it happened. Their lips met, hesitant at first, then with a force that erased every pretense. It was not part of the contract. It was not a role. It was two people colliding under the weight of everything they had tried to deny. When they finally broke apart, Lily's chest rose and fell in uneven waves. "This is a mistake," she whispered, though her body betrayed her words. Ethan's gaze was intense, almost pained. "Maybe, or maybe it is the only real thing we have." Silence wrapped around them again, heavy with unspoken truth. She wanted to run, to rebuild the walls she had carefully kept intact. But her feet stayed rooted to the floor. That night, neither of them slept easily. Lily lay awake, replaying the kiss until dawnlight crept through the curtains. Ethan, in his own room, sat with untouched whiskey, staring out at the city that demanded perfection, while he wrestled with the fact that for the first time in years, he had let someone slip past his defenses. The contract had brought them together, but the kiss had shattered its boundaries. And though neither spoke of it the next morning, both knew the danger had changed shape. It was no longer just about being discovered. It was about hearts that could not go back to pretending. The fallout came faster than either of them expected. 2 days after the kiss, headlines splashed across gossip sites. Ethan Cole's new love, real romance, or staged affair. Photographs from the gala showed Ethan's protective hand at Lily's waist, their eyes locked in a moment too tender to ignore. Reporters swarmed, desperate to know who the mystery woman was. Lily stood in the penthouse living room, her hands clutching the edge of the contract. "They know something. Someone must have told them." Ethan's voice was clipped. "Charlotte. Or someone in her circle. She would do anything to humiliate me. And now me," Lily whispered. Her chest tightened as she imagined her brother seeing the headlines, neighbors whispering, her carefully hidden world collapsing under cameras and flashing lights. That evening, Ethan's board of directors confronted him in a private meeting. Questions cut like knives. "Is this relationship genuine? Are you jeopardizing the company's reputation? Ethan deflected, but the doubt in their eyes lingered. Back at the penthouse, tension crackled. Ethan paced, fists clenched, his polished calm slipping. Do you realize what this means? If they uncover the contract, if they prove this is staged, I could lose everything. My credibility, my company, everything I have built. Lily's voice cracked. And what about me? I did not ask for this spotlight. I cannot handle the lies, Ethan. They will destroy me. For the first time, anger flared between them, raw and unfiltered. You agreed to this, Lily. You signed. Tears welled in her eyes. Yes, I signed. For my brother, for survival, not for this circus, not to become ammunition in your war with Charlotte. The words struck him harder than he expected. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, unable to find the right defense. That night, Lily packed her things. The dress Ethan had chosen for her still hung in the closet, untouched. She left the keycard on the marble counter and walked out of the penthouse, her footsteps echoing like the closing of a chapter. Ethan stood by the window, watching the city lights blur through the rain. For the first time in years, the empire he had built felt hollow, because without her, victory tasted like ash. The secret was no longer safe. The world was closing in, and so was the truth. The scandal reached its peak within days. Reporters crowded the front of Ethan's headquarters, cameras flashing, questions shouted. Is your relationship a publicity stunt? Did you pay her to be your date? The whispers that had haunted him turned into accusations that threatened to dismantle everything. Inside the boardroom, tension boiled. Shareholders demanded answers. Competitors smelled blood. For once, Ethan did not fight back with silence or arrogance. He stood at the head of the table, jaw set, and spoke clearly. Yes, I asked Lily to attend events with me. But what began as a contract is no longer a contract. She is not an actress. She is not a pawn. She is the only person who has ever challenged me to be more than my title. If that costs me everything, so be it. Gasps rippled across the room. The confession was bold, reckless even. But there was no turning back. Meanwhile, Lily sat in her small apartment, avoiding the constant ringing of her phone. She had walked away to protect herself, yet his words from the television screen reached her all the same. He had chosen to expose the truth, risking his empire, just to defend her. Later that night, Ethan found her. He stood at her door without the armor of a suit, only a man stripped of pretense. You were right, he admitted, his voice rough. I used you to fight my pride. I thought I could control the story, control you, control everything. But somewhere along the way, I lost control. Because what I feel for you, it is not part of any contract. Lily's eyes burned with unshed tears. She wanted to resist, to remind him of the lies, the games, the pain. But the vulnerability in his words disarmed her. He had laid down his weapons, something she had never thought possible. You are risking everything, she whispered. I know, he said softly, and I would risk it all again if it means I can stand beside you without pretending. For the first time, the walls between them truly crumbled. There were no gowns, no chandeliers, no spectators. Only a man and a woman, both scarred by pride and circumstance, choosing honesty over survival. The reveal had come at a cost, but it was also redemption. Ethan had reclaimed his integrity, and Lily, for the first time, felt seen, not as a role to play but as herself. The following weeks were not easy. Ethan's confession had shaken the business world, and the media continued to circle like vultures. But something had changed. Instead of running, Ethan faced the storm head-on, and this time, Lily stood beside him not as a contract, not as an illusion, but as a partner. At the next press conference, the room was packed with flashing cameras. Ethan stepped forward, his hand steady in Lily's. Yes, our relationship began as a contract, he admitted once more. But if you have watched us, if you have seen the way she carries herself, you know this is no act. Money can buy gowns and stages, but it cannot buy integrity. It cannot buy kindness. And it cannot buy love. That is why she is here. Not because of what she was paid, but because she chose to stay. Lily looked out over the sea of reporters, her heart hammering. For the first time, she was not hiding. She met the cameras with calm, her chin lifted just as Ethan had taught her. But this time, It was not performance. It was truth. The story shifted. Headlines no longer painted her as a fraud, but as the woman who had stood firm in a world determined to break her. Charlotte's name, once blazing, faded into whispers as people began to admire Lily's resilience and Ethan's willingness to lay his empire on the line for honesty. One evening, as the city lights flickered below, Ethan turned to her on the penthouse balcony. He held no contracts, no conditions, only a velvet box resting in his hand. "I asked you once to play a role," he said quietly. "But this time, I am asking you to be yourself. No contracts, no pretense, just us. Will you stay not as a date, not as a performance, but as my partner for real?" Tears filled Lily's eyes. She thought of the cafe, of the night he had first made his impossible proposition. She thought of the lies, the battles, the fragile line between pretense and truth. And now, here he was, offering her not money, not a deal, but a future built on something stronger. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking into a smile. "Yes, I will." The city roared beneath them, unaware of the quiet promise sealed on that balcony. For Ethan and Lily, the performance was over. The lights, the whispers, the doubts, they all fell away. What remained was real. Love not built on contracts, but on courage. A partnership forged not in lies, but in the choice to stand together against every barrier. And this time, it was forever.